Hey folks, with us today, Emre Koksal, founder of Anchor. Emre, super happy to have you.
Likewise, great to be here. Thanks, Nikolas.
Awesome. Let's dive right in. What problem does Anchor solve?
So that's a great question. So Anchor actually, organizations continually lose data, right? It's not, you keep reading about it in the news. Perhaps one thing that you don't read as much is it happens maybe more often through internal factors and insiders than external, say, attackers coming in and stealing your data. But we claim that that's not the problem. That's merely the symptom of the core problem, which is, the solutions that you put out there today to solve your data loss actually do not focus on data. They focus on blocking, say, networks, applications, and more importantly, eliminating actions by people, which means they almost always cause friction to the business. And what happens is people look for ways around it, and ultimately these projects in most part become unsuccessful. And because they also focus on the activity around data rather than data itself, the surface that they need to focus on is so large that almost requires full-time IT, many of them, to manage, not just onboard, but manage the solutions that you have out there. And Anchor basically eliminates this friction between business and security. It makes, your files secured without any friction. The secret sauce is simplicity. You add it, and without changing any of the workflows, Anchor eliminates any losses through insider factors as well as external components.
Got it. And who's the typical customer for that? Which type of company?
So very broadly, anytime you have data that you care about, like in the form of mostly files, you're a potential customer, you're a prospect for us. But today, our fastest growing vertical is in industrial manufacturing and energy. The reason for that is the way we solve the problem. The data type or where you store the data is unimportant for us. We don't change anything. It stays there. And as a result, the users or the industries that have various forms of IP, not just documents or forms, but also CAD files or source code, for example, those companies, because we unify the protection across the board, care about our product quite a bit because of its universality and because it doesn't require them to change anything in their workflows.
Interesting. That's quite a sensitive topic for most companies. Then is it the typical enterprise sales where it's a very consultative way in for the customers to start using you, or is there a self-serve component, or how does the go-to-market motion work for you?
Yeah, obviously, we have customers of all sizes. It's not just enterprise, which obviously, as you mentioned, they have a true problem in terms of protection because they have the vast amount of data, but also small and mid-sized organizations have this problem. So one of the things that we, again, the secret sauce is simplicity and transparency. So we want to be simple to the different components or different segments of the customer, not just the end user, but also, the management and onboarding component of it. So there's definitely self-serve. We are at the end of the day, at a hardcore SaaS platform with some agents deployed to the endpoints if the customer wants to control their data on the endpoints as well. So the SaaS component is ready. The clusters are ready when the customers are onboarding. The endpoint deployments are super simple. And ultimately, we ask 3 questions to the customers. Where do you want to keep your data? Who gets access and how? How do you want these users to get access? And it can easily be entered from a dashboard. There's some training involved in that. But all in all, it's maybe an hour and a half in deployment, which is in contrast to, for example, a typical DLP, which stands for data loss prevention project, which lasts for like 18 months just to scope the project. So that's like the way we want to be. Very simple. Just simply, flip a few toggle switches, enter a few data, and you're good to go. That's the way we want to be.
If you need to hire the right developers and ship fast, then React Squad is for you. A boutique agency that specializes in React and only works with fast growth startups. Get a 14-day risk-free trial and a transparent price of $95 per hour. Visit reactsquad.io to learn more.
And then I would love to switch gears a bit from like the product side to like the company building side. You started in 2019 and you're venture-backed. Could you tell us a bit about your funding history, so to say, so far?
So I raised some small pre-seed, like around $1 million, a little north of $1 million. Pre-seed, our product is, very innovative. It's a blue ocean type product. We were building something significant, substantial. It's not just an application. It touches all these components. It's a complex product. It's a complex product because we want to make it simple for the end user. I mean, we don't want to be like a simple to build, but, add all the complexities to the end user. It's kind of flipped around, which means the product is sophisticated. It took us maybe 2.5 years in stealth to have it, that we, to a point that we are satisfied with it. So around end of 21 or early 22, we came out of stealth. So that also coincides with the Black Hat conference. We have been joining the conference, sharing the same booth with Lockheed Martin for 2 years in a row. And, we came out of the stealth. We started selling. The way we designed the business, we designed it in 2 stages, the business go-to-market. The first stage was, hey, how can we get very quick feedback? How can we solve customer problems immediately, make the sales transactional deployment like in the matter of minutes as opposed to years? So that was the way we executed the first phase of the book business. For that phase, I have raised another $5 million. This is like, again, end of 20, early 21 timeframe. So all in all, we raised a little, like around 6 million. And right now we are going through and, almost very comfortable with that phase of quick business execution, 2-3 week sales cycles, deploy, solve immediate problems of the customers as quickly as we can. So that's the phase that we're at right now. And just to complete the answer, right now I'm also in the middle of a fundraising round. This one is not like a Series A. What I want is like a very smallish bridge round between now and Series A to take us to as comfortable, as transactional, and as, immediate in onboarding for larger, like enterprise type clients as we have right now for small to mid-sized businesses.
Got it. And then it's like we're recording here in June 2023, and the funding environment is, let's just say, not the greatest, not the best. As the founder and CEO, what is different and how you attempt or execute this fundraiser compared to the ones in like 2021 and earlier? Because it's like nobody wants to say like the R word recession. It's not quite that, but like the tech sector got hit quite a bit. So how do you manage that, like from a founder level?
Yeah, absolutely. Cost of capital is much higher. People are much more risk averse in this environment. So, what we do is, there are different types of investors. One type of investor is more what I refer to as like the spreadsheet investor. They look at every single detail about your business, like want to eliminate all the risks, like ask very specific questions about hey, what about this bullet of expense? What about, like this item on the pro forma, for example? So, it becomes much more difficult to get funding from those type of investors because they're very risk averse to begin with, and becomes much worse in environments like this. And then there's the second type of investors who are visionary. Okay, so hey, what is the problem? What's the vision? The big vision? How do you execute your vision? What's the plan? And once they get it, it's like, yeah, I get it. This has the potential to change the way people do business, so I'm in it. So those kind of investors are still out there. And, economic outlook, obviously, barring some big depression or something, economic outlook would not change much in the vision of those visionary investors. And what we do right now is we, look for those kind of investors and, talk to external, or even we have almost all of our investors are that kind, visionary. We also talk to our insider investors for further funding, and they're pretty enthusiastic about it. Let me put it that way.
Okay. And so first off, thanks a ton for the honest view, because especially for first-time founders who might have their first fundraising experience now, I think it's good to hear that.
Sure.
You touched the vision. What is the big vision for Anchor?
So, big vision for Anchor. So we are about solving customers' problems. Ultimately, though, the big vision is kind of a little beyond solving customers' problems, which is, obviously will remain at the core of our business. The big vision is we want to change the way people think about and implement control of data and ownership of data. We want people to understand they can share and collaborate without giving up ownership of their data. And we want them to understand that they can do it in such a simple fashion that, ultimately we exist to end the war between business and security. There's this notorious trade-off between business and security. Yeah, we have to give up security to get more, comfortable in the business, or vice versa. We want to end that way of thinking, because that kind of a trade-off need not be. So we exist to end the war between business and security.
God, that's quite unique. I would love to switch gears once again, because being a founder, no matter if it's bootstrapped or venture-backed, can be quite tough at times. So is there a war story of the time basically starting the business and then running it until now, a war story you can share with us?
Sure. So, it is tough. So one of the things is, I have, as a background, I have been coming from an academic background. I was a tenure track faculty. I was tenured, and people refer to this tenure process as, one of the toughest periods and one of the most stressful periods of their lives. Some of the listeners may be familiar with that process. It's indeed very stressful, but what is a little more stressful about being a founder is, some of the things need to continue forever. For example, you cannot just say, okay, I did fundraising. Now that that's over, I can focus on everything else. No, fundraising goes on forever. You have to think about the next round and the next round and so on and so forth until you kind of come to a point where it's self-sustained, but there's also a trade-off between self-sustained and growth. So you have to be careful about that. So it has to be an ongoing process. And number two, sales. So you cannot say, okay, every other component of my business is great, but so I can ignore sales. No, are you kidding me? Sales, you have to be success. You have to sell. You have to have happy customers. You have to keep them happy. support the customers. You're there to sell your product. So it has to thrive. You have to show growth there. Marketing, obviously, to feed the customers, you have to go out there and educate, everybody. Educate, be maybe a thought leader as a founder. So that is like marketing and education should be out there continuously. You cannot say, okay, I'm going to ignore that. It doesn't work that way. And, perhaps last but not least, the product. You have to have a rock solid product. It's the face of your company. You have to have the people should look at your product and, you have to be proud of it. And that is also something that you need to keep solid. You have to add capabilities to it, but you need to have a very solid product throughout. So the challenge in being a founder is all of these components of the business need to be good at all times, need to be thrive at all times. It cannot be like, okay, I solved one problem, now it's done, focus on everything else. No, you have to focus on everything to make it good, to make it sustainable at all times. So that's the big problem. And, everybody has war stories about keeping all the components of the business good at all times. But this is the big war challenge that I have. At every day, every morning, how can I, focus on everything else and keep them as strong as they were in day one? And, how can we continually improve? So that's the big challenge and the war that I have with myself, internal war every day. In a sense.
What is one way, first of all, I can totally understand and feel that. What is one way in which you cope with that?
Team is super important. And as a founder, you have to, as a leader, not just a founder, as a leader, you have to replace yourself, right? So one thing that, leaders get the policy of, okay, instead of spending the time onboarding somebody else and, teaching them to solve the problem, which I'm not sure I trust, I will do it myself. So you cannot. So you have to trust other people. So you have to continually replace yourself. You cannot stay on top of everything at all times. You have to find the right people to replace yourself about every aspect. You're good in business, focus on business, but continually find somebody who can do the same thing. And you'll never have the shortage of problems to solve for the business. So replace yourself and find the replacement so that you can move on to the other stuff that's not being addressed right now. So the answer to your question is build a team, continue to look for the best person to do the tasks that you're doing right now. Replace yourself.
I think that is an amazing point to wrap up. And thanks a ton for all the insights and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure, Nikolas. Thanks for having me. It was great being here.
If you like this episode, then you'll love the SaaS Operator, a weekly newsletter brought to you by EarlyNode, with actionable insights from SaaS experts in the industry delivered right to your inbox every Tuesday for free. Visit earlynode.com to subscribe.